there is no reason on earth to believe that heliocentrism is physically correct. Our classical physics, which obviously is based upon empirical experiments, actually stands on the side of geocentrism. It singles out geocentric coordinates as stationary, and these are the coordinates, and these are the only reference frames in terms of which these equations hold. I do think that it is time to bring some of these basic insights and recognitions to as wide an audience as we can. I think there's a need for it, and the time is ripe. This is a moment in history where there is a reason for these, I would say, fundamentally metaphysical recognitions to be made available to the public at large. I was amazed to see how absolutely non-existent empirical verification of Einsteinian physics is out there. In fact, the fact is there's really nothing out there. Incidentally, if the special theory falls, the general theory falls too, and it's my belief that the special theory has fallen. It does not square with the empirical evidence. So then neither does the general. Well, based upon general relativity, as I think our audience is well aware, perhaps the longest, most expansive research project in the history of mankind has unfolded, leading to the so-called Big Bang cosmology. And so now every school child knows that the universe reputedly is so many billion years old. So let us consider a little how this theory has fared. Well, the fact of the matter is it really has fared very badly from the beginning. In other words, early on, it turned out that these facts don't fit. That was remedied. Another set of facts don't fit. For example, it was found that the expansion of the universe within the first second is not fast enough to make everything work. So a very brilliant physicist invented something called inflation, which incidentally now is in big trouble. But the point that I want to make is that this technique of introducing what is technically called ad hoc hypothesis. Ad hoc means as much as picked out of thin air. There's no reason. You make this hypothesis, you postulate it precisely to remedy some problem. And this has been going on. So every time an ad hoc hypothesis is put in place, another problem arises, another ad hoc hypothesis appears.
It's not calculated to give one the greatest degree of confidence, is it?
One of the distinguished astronomers of our time, Brent Tully, put it rather in a funny way. He said, it's disturbing that every time there's a new observation, there's a new theory. But it really is true. So this technique of remedying difficulties through the introduction of ad hoc hypotheses is a very questionable thing. It is a technique, incidentally, which has been used for a long, long time to keep Darwinist evolution theory in business. So time and again, when a problem in this part of science comes up, you very ingeniously discover an ad hoc hypothesis which keeps things going. Well, another example in cosmology, there's not enough matter in the universe to have gravitational fields strong enough to explain the formation of stars. So you solve the problem by inventing something called dark matter. And I must say, but the point is, these exist on paper. Nobody has ever discovered any such particles. So this process of ad hoc interventions goes on, and it keeps the theory alive. And I really consider it a very interesting question in the philosophy of physics. What is to be said about the end product of such a process? Have you then discovered a truth, or have you created a fantasy? I think it's a very interesting problem. To my knowledge, nobody has given us the answer. But the fortunate thing is that in the case of Big Bang cosmology, we don't need to answer that question, because something happened in the way of empirical findings which ends this process. Something happened which no ad hoc hypothesis can remedy. And you're the expert on this, and as I think most of the people in the audience here will be well aware, I'm referring to the so-called axis of evil, so named because it really does put an end to Big Bang cosmology.
And it's called the axis of evil for very good reason, just as you said. It causes big headaches for anybody who's trying to prop up standard Big Bang cosmology.
Well, this is a worst case scenario. It's adding insult to injury. This great circle in the CMB, in the cosmic microwave background, which has now been documented beyond any possibility of doubt, it happens to line up with the ecliptic of our solar system.
Just amazing.
So we have to recall, in the Einsteinian universe, the Earth is a random speck within a galaxy, which is itself just a random speck. So this speck within a speck now controls the global geometry of the cosmos.
Divides the whole cosmos neatly in two.
Yeah. I'd like to make one remark, because I think perhaps for many viewers this may come as a surprise. One of the most convincing, quote, confirmations of relativity is the famous formula E equals mc squared. And we all know, tragically, that this formula is true and dead accurate. Well, what is the story about that? Einstein derived it from his theory of relativity, special theory, and this is true. You can do that. What he did not tell us is the fact that this formula follows directly from the Maxwell equations, which existed ever since about 1848, and in fact had been picked up by physicists in the 19th century. I understand there's some obscure journal someplace where this formula has actually been derived. The point is that it has nothing to do with relativity theory. But hardly anyone knew this. I didn't know it. I mean, I was among the duped people who thought that this was confirmation with a bang, a very big bang.
Yeah, exactly.
And it was not until 1950 that Einstein confirmed that in one of his writings. He said, yes, that can be derived from the Maxwell equation. In the meantime, the damage, I would say, was done. the whole world had become Einsteinian.
Well, you know, this
So-
raises a very interesting theme that recurs in your work over and over again. The distinction between science and scientism.